incredibly proud of myself because I did get faster, especially after having 2 kids. I'm going to be 42. The few times I've run half marathons since having kids, it was basically just to get across the finish line. This was the first time I trained for speed. I knew exactly what I needed to do. There's a few tweaks I will make. I think that could help. And then I also, one other thing that I did throughout all of this, and I did it really well over the summer, I didn't do it so great in the fall, is that I started incorporating just 10 minutes of Pilates into my workout most days. So I would do that maybe 5 days a week. 10 minutes of Pilates in the afternoon just to strengthen the core. And I think that helped a lot. Hello, and welcome to the Green Leads Podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Rizzo, and today I'm going to be recapping the Philly Half Marathon, which I ran just 2 days ago on Saturday, November 22nd. I have my medal on. If you're listening to the podcast, you'll hear the little bell. It has a little Liberty Bell on it. If you're watching the podcast, which by the way, we do have a YouTube. So if you ever want to watch the guests that we have or just me in person, you could go to Green Leads on YouTube and you'll see this really cool medal. And of course, I posted it on social media too. So follow me at Green Leads and you'll see all kind of race day updates. And if you wanted to follow live for the next time we're doing this, you can follow us there or post stories and whatever. So here's my medal for the half marathon. I'm going to take it off because it does get to be annoying with the bell. It was a really fun race. So I'm happy. I want to recap it. And this is the first time I'm ever doing something like this. So I wanted to kind of get into it because one, this was a special race for me. I've run about 20 half marathons. I've been running for about 10 years and I've gone into this in past podcast episodes. But as a little refresher, I started running when I was 29. I turned 30, or my birthday is in December. So the end of the year is always a time of reflection for me. And I was 29 and I had always exercised, but I wanted to set some sort of goal for myself as I was turning 30. And I put my name in the lottery for the New York City Half Marathon. This year I'm turning 42. So this is 12 years ago and it was much easier. And I got into the New York City Half Marathon. And I was not a runner at all. So I basically had to go from no running to running in almost, 3.5 months. And in doing that, I fell in love with the sport. So that was kind of the origin story of me running. But my first race was a half marathon. And that's kind of been the distance that I love the most. I've run 2 full marathons. I've run a lot of other small races. But the half marathon is what I've stuck with. So that's why I've done about 20 of them now. I think this was actually my 20th race, but I'm not 100% sure. But I always run in New York City, or I've done the Chicago Marathon. I've done one race in Philly once, which was in September, and it was so brutally hot that I didn't really like it. But this time around, I signed up for this race because I was looking for a race back in the spring. I ran the New York City half this year too, and after the race finished, I started looking for something that I could run in the fall. I did put my name in the lottery for the New York City Marathon, but I didn't get in. So once the marathon was out of sight, I thought, what half marathon can I do? And this one was one that you can just register. There's not a lottery for. It's still a big race and it still goes through a city. But looking into it, I thought, okay, that's cool. Philly is about 90 minutes away by train. I can go there. I can run the race. So I signed up a while ago. Maybe it was May I signed up for this race. And I just thought, I had it in the, it was far away. I was thinking about it, but it wasn't super close. But something that I've come really close to and I've never been able to achieve, because I started running at the age of 30. I'm not someone who ran cross country in high school. I've always been kind of, quote unquote, a slower runner. I'm running 10-minute miles, 11-minute miles, and I've come really close to a 2-hour half marathon, a sub-2 hour half marathon. Once, without even trying, I ran a 2:02, which, at the time I was much younger. This is, 8 years ago. And I thought, that was great. I just had a great day. I had a great run. But over the years, I've always wanted to kind of get back to that and maybe get closer to sub-2 hour half marathon. So that's a goal that I've had in the back of my mind. But I also, had babies. So you have 2 kids and I ran during the pregnancies, but I also had C-sections. So I had to recover from those. And then when you get pregnant again, so all of that kind of derails your running. I ran half marathons after both kids, and my second kid, I also had a pulmonary embolism. I had all of these health complications, which there's a podcast about that if you want to go back and listen to it, because I go into the entire story. But I never really had the time to get back to that goal. So this time I decided I'm going to set the goal to run this sub 2-hour half marathon. And I set this goal before the summer even started, back in May. I said, I'm going to start doing some strength training. I'm going to start doing some speed workouts. I'm going to follow a plan, and I am going to get faster. And I've always been the type that throws speed workouts into my workouts occasionally. I don't do it consistently. I didn't really care about time that much. I just cared about finishing races and having fun. And for me, running is something that I absolutely love. It brings me so much joy. And I don't even think I realized how much joy it brought me until after I had children. When now I go out, sometimes before 6 a.m. and I'm really loving just being outside. When it's dark out, I like looking up at the stars. I like seeing the sunrise. I love just the joy of running and having that time to myself, the time where there's no screen in front of me. I'm just out there with my thoughts. And I really, truly love it. And I don't think I even realized that I loved it so much until, again, a few episodes ago. This is another episode you can listen to. I talked to Claire from the Planet Runner, and she's a runner who trained so hard and reached a sub 3-hour marathon because she was running so consistently. She said at one point she was running 90 miles a week in her 40s, and running was just her life, and chasing these goals was her life, that she got to the point where she was so burnt out from it that she stopped running. She doesn't run at all anymore. She's a running coach, and she knows what she's doing, but she doesn't run at all anymore. When I heard that story, I thought to myself, I love running so much, I don't ever want that to be me. So all of this to say, running is what brings me a lot of joy. And I set this goal knowing that this is something that I definitely can achieve. I'm only 2 minutes away from it. And it's something that I wanted to look forward to as something that I would be so proud of myself when I get there. So I signed up for a training plan, and I've used training plans in the past, but I used Runna this time, which is an app. I used it for last year for the New York City New York City half marathon. That's when I got introduced to it. And I really liked the way that it adapted based on the pace you put in, the goals that you set forth. So I put it in there. I put that I was training for this race in there. And it created a training plan for me, and it incorporated about 2 speed workouts a week. I put in that I could run 4 days a week. Consistently, I run about 4 days a week. I can't always do 5. Sometimes I do, but with the little kids at home and everything, 4 days a week is most realistic. And it increased the mileage for me. It increased the speed workouts. And what really I focused on this time were speed workouts. I made sure I did at least 1 a week, usually 2 a week. And then I also tried to maintain the long runs. So I did this over time, and I did this over about 6 months worth of time. And I should say that in doing this, I had to train over the summer. And I absolutely hate running in the summer. I love running so much, but I am not the type of runner who likes to run in the heat. Running in the heat is not for me. It makes me feel terrible. But I still continue to have this goal in mind of this sub 2-hour half. And I did these speed workouts even in the summer. I don't really run on a treadmill much. I'll do it mostly in the winter when it's freezing and it's icy outside. But in the summer, if I can, I will run outside, even if it's hot, even if it's humid, or I'll do some other form of workout. So I kept up with that speed workout throughout the summer, throughout the fall. Of course, I battled a few illnesses here and there because I have little kids at home. So I got the stomach flu over the summer. I got a bad cold or two at the beginning of the fall. But I continued to stick with this. So this is the first thing that I changed, was adding in speed workouts. And I did see my speed start to increase or my time start to drop. And the way that I saw this, it's so hard because you do these speed workouts and you're doing maybe, you're running 800 meters. So you run for like 5 minutes at a time and then you take a break. So I kept thinking, how am I going to translate this to a race? How do you know if this translates to 13.1? But what I would see over that, the last run I did basically 2 weeks ago before this was a pyramid run where you did, a quarter mile, half a mile, 0.75 of a mile. And putting all of those together, my pace during that race was about an 8-minute mile, which for me is very quick. So I kind of went into this thinking that I could potentially meet this sub 2 hour half. But, there's a few things that were I'm working against me, I guess, which is, where I'm running these types of races, I do tend to run more than the actual distance. So 13.1 is, what a half marathon is. I ended up running 13.3. So when you take that into account, and the reason for that is because, you're weaving in and out of people, you're running around people, so you end up running a little extra distance. And when you take that into account, you actually have to run faster than the 9:09 pace that you have to keep for 13.1 miles. So that was the one thing that I kind of knew. I don't know, maybe if I have to run a 9-minute mile the whole time, can I do that? I'm not sure. My speed workouts say I potentially can, but I'm not sure. The other thing was, the one thing that I missed out on the training, I didn't do a lot of hill workouts. I live in New York City. It's flat. We have a bridge right by us. And at one point in the mornings, I thought about going over there and doing some speed and hill workouts. But this was around October before daylight savings time, and it was pitch dark in the morning. And I didn't feel the safest running this bridge when it was pitch dark. So I decided to just kind of not worry about the hills so much. And I didn't even really look at the course map all that much. I just knew that there was a few hills in there. But I was like, I'll figure it out when I'm there. I'm not going to worry about it. The whole course isn't hilly. This isn't a San Francisco course. Like, I don't have to worry about it. So I didn't worry about that. Those were kind of the two things going against me. But the one other thing that I changed throughout all of this, and this is a change that I've made since having my second baby 2 years ago, was changing my fueling during long runs and during races. And the change that I actually made, and you may be surprised that I haven't been doing this all along, was that I added in more fuel. I'm sure you probably heard fuel early and often. I started doing that by taking it incredibly seriously. So obviously I've worked with runners for 10 plus years, and I talk a lot about marathon training and running different long distances and how much fuel you actually need. But if I look back to the New York City Marathon that I ran in 2016, I think I probably had 2 gels during the entire marathon. So I wasn't fueling entirely properly. And I always thought, I'm not a competitive runner. I'm a slow runner. I'm small. I'm only 5'3". None of this really matters to me. But it's interesting because I feel like as I started getting older and I still wanted to be competitive with this, and now I'm in my 40s, I started considering myself more of an athlete now because I'm in the minority. There's not as many women in their 40s who have 2 young children at home that are running these long distance races and setting these time goals for themselves as me. So if I want to be competitive with this, even if it's just competitive with myself, there's other runners out there much faster than me, I have to think of this as a sport that I train and I follow the training plan and I follow the nutrition plan. And I was always having some fuel during run, but not enough. So what I did during the New York City Marathon, I keep calling it the New York City Marathon. It's the New York City Half Marathon back in March. And then I ran another half marathon in May, was I started this fueling early and often. And I used the Cliff shot blocks, which I like the salted watermelon, by the way, if you're looking into those. I'm not a huge fan of gels. I may try it again next year because I know they're much easier to take in while you're running than the gummies. I just never really liked the taste, and I really like the taste of the gummies, so I've always gone with those. Each packet of those gummies has 50 grams of carbs. So because I'm trying to run this race in 2 hours, I wanted to hit the higher end of that 30 to 60 grams per hour. So I decided to use 2 full packs of the Cliff Shot Blocks, which is about 100 grams of carbs. And I did that with, I'll tell you how I feel during the race, but I did it during the New York City Half Marathon to see if I could make it work and how my stomach would react. And what I did was I separated everything by about 3 miles. So I said, I'm going to fuel it mile 3, 6, 9, and then I did it again at 11 because I didn't want to do it too close to the end because then, you're not really reaping the benefits. So I took 3 gummies each. There's 6 gummies in a pack at each marker. And it worked. By mile 11, I felt great during that race. Now, I didn't have any time goals, so I wasn't running as hard as I was this time, but it really made me feel good at the end of 13.1 miles, which you would be surprised to hear, especially considering, a lot of people, it's hard for them to feel good at the end of a race. But I do always say, nutrition is what gets you over that hump. And I think this was the first time I actually fueled properly for myself to get me over that hump. So with that, I also drank plenty of water. I wasn't doing a ton of sports drinks, but in training for this half, I used the gummies on longer runs, kind of in that interval of about 50 grams per hour. And I incorporated sports drinks on shorter runs and on longer runs. Because what was happening was during the longer runs and the shorter runs, I was getting headaches afterwards. And I couldn't quite figure it out because I was fueling before. I'd get up in the morning around 5:30 in the morning, and I would have a Cliff Bar, usually half a Cliff Bar, something that I could digest pretty easily. I would have a few sips of cold brew and some water, and I would make sure I'd have plenty of water. But I would bring my handheld water bottle with me to hydrate during the run. And I thought that was fine. I'm running 4 or 5 miles, maybe 6 miles in the morning, nothing crazy. But I would come back, and 2 hours later, I'd have these intense headaches. So I started thinking about how can I adjust things, and what I thought was, I think I'm not having enough electrolytes during these runs, or maybe I'm just not fueling enough, because that half a Cliff Bar or a Cliff Bar is just not enough to get me through. So I decided to start adding in some sports drinks during the runs, and I ordered the Scratch Labs, the powder that you can make your own, in the handheld water bottle, which I have the Nathan handheld water bottle, and honestly, I didn't hate the taste. I started to really get used to it, and the headaches completely went away. So that helped me start adjusting my GI system to take in fuel during running, to take in more than I needed, to be hydrated, and also take in those electrolytes. So that on race day, I could have the Cliff shot blocks as well as the sports drink. So putting all of that together, race day comes this Saturday. Let me talk to you a little bit about going to the expo actually first and all of that. So this is actually kind of funny, but when you go to the expo the day before, the line to get in and get your bib was insanely long. If you're listening to this or watching this because you're going to run the Philly Half Marathon next year, or you're thinking about it, know that the line to pick up your bib was insanely long. And it wasn't because there was more people than they could handle. It was because it wasn't organized all that well. So I was actually very lucky that I walked up to the front of the line, and I kind of there was 2 lines. There was a short one, and then there was one that was, I'm not even kidding, 200-300 people long. So of course I got on the short line, and then as I was in the line, I realized that I was in the line for the full marathon. But what happened was all of it funneled into the same place. So once I got funneled in there, I was already in there, and then I was able to go pick up my bib. So I didn't even really know what I was doing, but I ended up skipping the line. So know that if you're going to the expo, that it's an insane line, and try to go at an off-peak time, or try to figure out a way to just avoid this at all costs. But the next morning, the race comes. The race starts at 7 a.m., which I actually really like because you're done by 9:30. It was raining that morning. I had a poncho that I put on. I tried to keep myself completely dry. My hotel was about a mile from the start, and I decided to use that mile to warm up, which I normally wouldn't do because I'm trying to save my legs. But I just thought the only way I'm going to be able to push myself to this race pace is if I warm up with a slow mile. So I ran a mile to the start, and before that, I had half a bagel, I had some coffee, and I had some dried mango. And then I brought my 2 packets of gummies with me to the start. So I go to the start, I'm getting ready to go, I get in the corral for the sub-2 hour half, and I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to fuel throughout this so that I feel good and keep that consistency throughout? And I decided to fuel very early. I started at mile 2 with the fuel. So I took off. I'm running about an 8:45 minute pace, which is too fast for me. let's be honest. This is what I'm going to change next time. I have to work on the pacing. It was too fast, but I felt good. I tried to pull it back a little, and I pulled it back to about a 9-minute, 9:15-minute. I'm like, okay, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. I took in my first bit of fuel, the 3 gummies at mile 2, and I was going to take in another one at mile 4, and then I figured I'd do mile 7 and maybe mile 9 or 10. So I'm running. Around mile 4, I'm running really hard, and I'm thinking to myself, can I do this for another 9 miles? Can I keep this pace for another 9 miles? And I thought I could. I was like, I think I can. I think I can keep this pace. But it was hard. Like, it was definitely hard. And then when I got to mile 5, I'm like, okay, 8 more miles. Can I do this for another 8 more miles? I think I can. So I'm taking, what I would do with my fueling is at mile 2, I took in the gummies. Then at mile 3, I would get water. Then at mile 4, I would get sports drink. And then I would do gummies again. So I kind of consistently followed that routine so that I was getting enough water, sports drinks, electrolytes, and carbs throughout. That worked. The fueling worked perfectly for me. I never had any GI issues. I never felt anything. My stomach felt great the whole time. I think I could have probably used a handheld water bottle to take in even more fluid. I could have been a little more diligent with the hydration, but all of that worked. So basically, I did end up fueling at mile 2, mile 4, mile 7, and mile 9. And that got me through the end of the race. What happened was at mile 8, there was a very big uphill battle that I did not know was going to be there because I did not pay attention to the elevation of the course. And that killed me because I slowed down to almost a 10-minute pace for that mile. And when you're trying to hit a certain pace, if you slow down by a minute, it's almost impossible to catch it back up because then you have to speed up the next mile by a minute. And by that point, my legs were just done. So I got up that hill. I thought, okay, maybe I can catch up here. Maybe I can get a 2:01. Maybe I can get just 2 in the 2-hour range, not the 1:59. And then mile 10, there was another uphill battle. And I just couldn't do it anymore. So I ended up finishing the race. I think I finished in 2:03, but I ran 13.3 miles. So if you look at it overall, and if I found a course where it was a straight course, I wasn't running in and out of people, there wasn't a lot of elevation, I'm pretty sure I can do the sub 2-hour pace. So that's kind of what happened to me there. And I am incredibly proud of myself because I did get faster, especially after having 2 kids. Like I said, I'm going to be 42. The few times I've run half marathons since having kids, it was basically just to get across the finish line. This was the first time I trained for speed. I knew exactly what I needed to do. There's a few tweaks I will make, which is, of course, incorporating more hill training into my training. I will do a little bit more, I think, working on that electrolyte fueling balance because I think that could help. And then I also, one other thing that I did throughout all of this, and I did it really well over the summer, I didn't do it so great in the fall, is that I started incorporating just 10 minutes of Pilates into my workout most days. So I would do that maybe 5 days a week. 10 minutes of Pilates in the afternoon just to strengthen the core. And I think that helped a lot. So I think all of those things consistently done over the winter can help me reach this goal again in the spring, which I just signed up today actually because, we're runners, we're lunatics for the Brooklyn half marathon in April, the end of April. I wanted to run the New York City half marathon, but I didn't get in via the lottery. So if anyone knows of another way to get in, other than the charity, I like the charity. Obviously, it's great to run for charity, but it's just I don't have the time to do the fundraising right now. But if anyone wants to give me a bib, just kidding. So that's what I have my eyes set on Brooklyn for this sub 2-hour half and these tweaks that I want to make over the winter. And then the one other tweak that I think I can make and I will definitely focus on is changing my body composition a little bit. I still have held on to about 10 extra pounds since having kids because I haven't really prioritized, focusing on that calorie deficit. And I think it's time to do that. So with I don't think that it's great to do it during training, during heavy training, but because I won't really start training again for this until maybe January, I think I can do this for the next, month or two and focus on that calorie deficit, focus on tightening up the core, and then get into the hills, get into the speed, make sure the fueling is on point. And I think that 2-hour half is mine. So I hope you stick with me throughout this entire journey. Follow me on social media at Greenleats if you want to keep up with me getting there and punching my ticket to that sub 2-hour half, which for some people, like I said, I know this is not a huge goal for some people. They can do this in their sleep. This is a goal for me. This is something that's important to me. And I think that this is something that I can achieve. And when I get there, I'm not sure what's next. I don't want to get burnt out and chasing new PRs every time. I think I'll always find something fun and new to do, whether it's running the New York City Marathon again, which I would absolutely love to do, but again, hard to get in via lottery, or something else. We'll see. But this is what I'm doing for now. So I hope you follow along with me. And if you have some sort of goal, or you know, like this resonates with you, this is something that you did that, you kind of have a similar journey, please reach out to me, DM me at Greenleats, or send me an email. You can find my email on my website, and I'd love to chat with you. I just love talking to other runners about all of this stuff. Or if you need some help with your fueling, please do reach out, because it's always a work in progress, but it really, really does help. And I'm here to give you that help and help with the guidance. And I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving, and that this episode inspires you to set a new goal for next year, or the next time that you have time to set a goal for, because that's what I'm here for. So thanks so much for listening. If you like this episode, if you like other episodes, please rate the podcast, because the more ratings we have, the more people it gets pushed out to. And I appreciate you all. I'll be back next week, actually, with a really great interview going through runner nutrition myths, because we talked about fueling here, but there's others that you should definitely learn about. So happy Thanksgiving. See you next week.